Part 2 of highlights from Taylor Swift's Time magazine interview. The release of Swift's first album with Republic, 2019's Lover, coincided with the second big upheaval in her professional life. Borchetta had sold Big Machine, and with it, Swift's catalog, valued then at a reported $140 million to Ithaca Holdings, which is owned by music manager Scooter Braun, a former ally of West's. With the Scooter thing, my masters were being sold to someone who actively wanted them for nefarious reasons, in my opinion, Swift says. Now, Scooter Braun had told Variety in 2021, quote, "It makes me sad that Taylor had that reaction to the deal." The sale meant that the rights to Taylor Swift's first 6 albums moved to Braun, so whenever someone wanted to license one of those songs, he would be the one to profit. Swift rallied her fans against the deal, but still felt powerless. "I was so knocked on my ass by the sale of my music and to whom it was sold," she says. "I was like, oh, they got me beat now. This is it. I don't know what to do." She went back to work using the pandemic lockdown to pare back her sound on critically acclaimed albums Folklore and Evermore. The licensing aspect is interesting because it also means that Scooter Braun has the ability to license her music to anyone. And we know that she doesn't just work with with anyone. Case in point, Kim Kardashian. Around that same time, Swift started thinking about re-recording her old albums in an effort to wrestle back control. "I'd run into Kelly Clarkson and she would go, 'Just redo it,'" Swift says. "My dad kept saying it to me too. I'd look at them and go, 'How can I possibly do that? Nobody wants to redo their homework if on the way to school, the wind blows your book report away.'" Since Swift wrote her own songs, she retained the musical composition copyright and could re-record them. She also negotiated to own the master rights for her material when she moved over to Republic in 2018. So she now owns her new material and the re-recorded song. So that was a great explanation into all of that. Major labels have since made it more difficult for artists to re-record their music. Yes, there's a rule now that you have to wait like 15 years, I think. Swift frames the strategy as a coping mechanism. "It's all in how you deal with loss," she says. "I respond to extreme pain with defiance." Taylor continues, "If you look at what I've put out since then, it's more albums in the last few years than I did in the first 15 years of my career. That prolific output has fueled her ascension. She could serve 2 terms as president of the United States and then go to Las Vegas." Grange says, "Who else can do that?" In the grand narrative of Swift's life, as she rose this year, her foes' fortunes also seemed to turn. Over the summer, it was reported that several of Braun's key clients, chief among them Justin Bieber and Ariana Grande, were no longer being managed by his company, while West's anti-Semitic and other offensive remarks led to his losing key endorsement deals. Swift knows firsthand that fame is a seesaw. "Nothing is permanent," she says, "so I'm very careful to be grateful every second that I get to be doing this at this level because I've had it taken away from me before. There's one thing I've learned. My response to anything that happens, good or bad, is to keep making things, keep making art. But I've also learned there's no point in actively trying to quote-unquote defeat your enemy," she says. "Trash takes itself out every single time." Has anyone checked on Kim Kardashian, though? So on the release of her Eras Tour movie, we met with all the studios and we met with all the streamers and we sized up how it was perceived and valued and if they had high hopes and dreams for it. Ultimately, I did what I tend to do more and more often these days, which is to bet on myself. She credits her father with the idea. He just said, "Why does there have to be, for a lack of a better word, middleman?" Swift's private life has long served as both grist for the tabloid mill and inspiration for her own work. She split from her longtime boyfriend, actor Joe Alwyn, earlier this year. Most recently, she's been dating the NFL star Travis Kelce, as has been well documented when she attends his games. "I don't know how they know what suite I'm in," Taylor says. "There's a camera like a half mile away and you don't know where it is and you have no idea when then camera is putting you on broadcast. So I don't know if I'm being shown 17 times or once." She is sensitive to the attention that's put on her when she shows up. "I'm just there to support Travis," she says. "I have no awareness of it if I'm being shown too much and pissing off a few dads, Brads, and Chads." Man, Taylor literally just fucking mic dropped. Mic dropped. Football is awesome, it turns out, Swift says playfully. I've been missing out my whole life. A game she attended in October was the most watched Sunday show since the Super Bowl. This all started when Travis very adorably put me on blast on his podcast, which I thought was metal as hell, Swift says. We started hanging out right after, so we actually had a significant amount of time that no one knew, which I'm grateful for because we got to get to know each other. By the time I went to that first game, we were a couple. I think some people think they saw our first date at that game. We would never be psychotic enough to hard launch a first date. The larger point for her is that there's nothing to hide. When you say a relationship is public, that means I'm going to see him do what he loves. We're showing up for each other. Other people are there, and we don't care. The opposite of that is you have to get an extreme amount of effort to make sure no one knows that you're seeing someone, and we're just proud of each other. The Eras Tour was a critical piece of what Swift calls a 3-part summer of feminine extravaganza. The other 2 parts being Barbie and Beyonce's Renaissance Tour. Taylor Swift on Beyonce. She's the most precious gem of a person, warm and open and funny, and she's such a great disruptor of music industry norms. She taught every artist how to flip the table and challenge archaic business practices. There were so many stadium tours this summer, but the only ones that were compared were me and Beyonce. Clearly, it's very lucrative for the media and stan culture to pit women against each other, even when those 2 artists in question refuse to participate in that discussion. If we have to speak stereotypically about the feminine and the masculine, she says, women have been fed the message that what we naturally gravitate towards. She has a few examples: girlhood, feelings, love, breakups, analyzing those feelings, talking about them nonstop, glitter, sequence. We've been taught that those things are more frivolous than the things that stereotypically gendered men gravitate towards, right? And what has existed since the dawn of time? A patriarchal society. What fuels a patriarchal society? Money, flow of revenue, the economy. So actually, if we're going to look at this in the most cynical way possible, feminine ideas becoming lucrative means that more female art will get made. It's extremely heartening on being in the public eye, Swift says. Over the years, I've learned I don't have the time or bandwidth to get pressed about things that don't matter. Yes, if I go out to dinner, there's going to be a whole chaotic situation outside the restaurant, but I still want to go to dinner with my friends. Life is short, have adventures. Me locking myself away in my house for a lot of years, I'll never get that time back. I'm more trusting now than I was 6 years ago. Amen to that, as someone who still locks herself away. But has regretted doing that in the past. Taylor Swift on revisiting Reputation, which is perhaps the most changed era in the tour. It's a goth punk moment of female rage at being gaslit by an entire social structure, Swift says, laughing. I think a lot of people see it and they're just like 6 snakes and strobe lights. The upcoming vault tracks for Reputation will be fire, she promises. The re-recordings project feels like a mythical quester. I'm collecting Horcruxes, she says. I'm collecting Infinity Stones. Gandalf's voice is in my head every time I put out a new one. For me, it is a movie now. Maybe this is the real Taylor Swift effect, that she gives people, many of them women, particularly girls, who've been conditioned, sorry, I don't know why I'm crying, to accept dismissal, gaslighting, and mistreatment from a society that treats their emotions as inconsequential, permission to believe that their interior lives matter. That for your heart to break, whether it's from being kicked off a tour or by the memory of a scarf still sitting in a drawer somewhere, or because somebody else controls your life's work, is a valid wound. And no, you're not crazy for being upset about it or for wanting your story to be told. Oh my God. Taylor Swift states that she wrote Mastermind after watching the Paul Thomas Anderson film Phantom Thread, which, spoiler, culminates in the reveal of a vast layered manipulation. Remember that last scene, she says? I thought, wouldn't it be fun to have a lyric about being calculated? It's something that's been thrown at me like a dagger, but now I take it as a compliment, and it is a compliment. You guys, I'm sorry. I'm literally getting my period any day now, but those are the highlights from Taylor Swift's Person of the Year Time Magazine interview. Mazel tov, mommy.